What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Tet Talk, the Tetrad podcast, where we talk about technology and all things we find interesting. And we have a very special guest, someone who I've been chatting to over the past couple of years. We share some thoughts with each other every now and again. Lethabo Lee Ntshudisane, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Felix. I'm excited to be here and excited to get going.
I love it. Thanks for making the time. I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast, especially in the career of tech, anything cloud and SaaS, will get a lot of value from hearing a little bit of your story. So I think maybe that's even where we want to start off with. You've told me your story, things from working at Google in your early years as an intern, coming onto Deloitte, and now being in a bigger company in FMCG, and coming in as a consultant, providing value to a couple different people, and then obviously spending a lot of time in things like Salesforce, but also a couple other things. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, how you got started, and how on earth you found yourself here today?
Sure thing. It's actually an interesting story. I remember being about, I'd say, 10 years old.
Okay.
We were staying in apartment buildings, flats. So it wasn't apartments then, we called it flats. And friends of mine had a computer.
Okay.
We didn't have a computer as a family at the time, and they had FIFA. I remember playing FIFA 92, FIFA 94 on the computer, especially Mortal Kombat 3 as well. Each time I went over to play there, I always told myself, I love computers. There's something special about computers. And I think that's actually something that I've kept throughout my life.
Sure. I've
been passionate about it since then. Then my family eventually got a computer. Now I'm playing different games. Your Duke Nukem's 2D. You know, when we actually had those games that made those motherboard sounds. Like,
yeah.
You know, so it was actually then where I actually decided, no matter what happens in this life, I pray that I actually become a tech professional.
Oh, flip. Awesome. I mean, already knowing your story, it's pretty cool that you've been able to make that real.
Yeah. And then since then, got my own laptop at probably, I was doing the 9th grade. And trust me, that laptop went through everything from
putting new RAM inside,
RAM, having viruses crash it, to restoring it using the command line. And at that point in time, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just playing around with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually gotten me to where I am with fidgeting with things. Even in terms of my mindset, I'm always a firm believer of trying new things, exploring, and not being scared to push that button.
Not being scared to break something, maybe.
Not being scared to break something.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my previous managers, his favorite thing is, he said, is if you don't break it, you're not making progress.
Yeah. You remind me of on the computer, old. It is old, but the laptops you would get, let's say HP, or I remember HP Pavilion. That was one of my first ones. It was a hand-me-down from like 3 other people, and then it had always a sticker on where the hard drive access point was, Windows Vista or something. If warranty void, if the seal was broken, I didn't even think twice. You just like cut through it.
Yeah, my warranty probably was void 3 months into having my very first computer. And then from there, a thing that surprises a lot of people, what I actually studied, in high school I did CAD, computer application technology, so where you learn WordPress, Excel, Access. But the thing that always catches people off guard, when I went to Rhodes University, I actually studied a Bachelor of Social Science.
Hectic.
And that's the thing that always confuses people, like, wait.
How do you end up here doing that?
Yeah, how do you end up there? But the thing they don't know also is that information systems was my second major, and my first major was economic sociology.
Okay.
So sociology was actually my first major because I've always wanted to become a psychologist, but because of the time it took to become one, I figured I'm not doing it. I'm not venturing into it. But because also tech is a love of mine, I had to find a way to merge those two worlds. Sociology is not quite psychology, but it gave me insights on how society functions, and a lot of, the Marx theories and, a lot of that really shaped my mind in seeing how the world works. Sure. And I believe that has also contributed to my career in technology.
Okay. How do you think that kind of thinking, psychology, you mentioned some of the great minds there, Friedrich Nietzsche and all those kind of guys, the skeptics, etc. How did that kind of thinking or learning that affect your decision making now? We'll get back to your career on how it went from there.
It's impacted my decision making because firstly, when you interact with people, you need to see them as that first, people, right? Because, there's a lot of, what can I say? There's a lot of misconceptions on what an IT person is, what a tech person is.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's drinking Coke is in a dungeon, working in the dark, wearing
Pizza
glasses,
gets slid underneath the door,
having pizza. And we've seen as time has gone, that image has changed drastically. And I think I've been fortunate enough from an early age to know that your profession is just that. It's your profession. It doesn't make you who you are. And your decision making is still founded on all the morals and all the knowledge that you've picked up over the years. So if anything, it's taught me how to treat people and approach them as people first. So because of that, for instance, a lot of people care about titles, big titles. They throw titles around in the workplace. I don't care. I believe you need to treat the cleaner with the same respect that you would treat the CEO. And I think having gone through that social sciences degree, it really did shape my mind in handling a lot of these interactions with people, because the reality is life is interactions with people. No, we aren't silos. Our experiences on this planet is shaped by the interactions we have with people.
Yeah.
As an example, I'm on this podcast today because of the relationship that me and you have managed to build, which is yet again interactions with people. So the social science degree did definitely impact how I carry myself, not only in my personal life, but also in the workplace.
Okay. Yeah, you're so right. You made me think there now about the image we have in our mind of a developer is so inaccurate. Developer today could be anything. Could be a guy with a surfboard sitting at a coffee shop, a technical architect managing complex teams and systems.
Yeah.
Finishes after a couple hours of work, finishes his little espresso, heads off to the beach, and goes for a surf or something like that. It's so dynamic. We can't assume who someone in the tech world is.
The crazy part about that, obviously, AI is a big topic, but we're not going to get too much into it. But the past few weeks, I actually saw an 8-year-old building their own tool using AI. So even the advances in technology actually changing the perception, or the people who we normally assumed will be the people to build the next big tools. Now it can be anyone.
Yeah.
It's a 13-year-old. If it's not AI, it's through no code.
Yeah.
Because now there is actually, which is part of the reason I love Salesforce and why I actually transitioned into Salesforce for my career, is because that picture of someone who's technical, who's going to build the solution, has changed very drastically. Because now the power is in a lot more hands in terms of who can actually develop and produce
Is that a good
software.
thing? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
Okay.
It's a good thing. Obviously, it comes with its risks and its cons, but it's definitely a good thing, because I believe we're getting to a stage where technology is being democratized, and we're getting to a stage where accessibility is now becoming more of a thing. And I think in the world that we live in now, we know there are a lot of disadvantaged people. There's a huge technology gap between different societies and different countries, between different classes. So it's very important that now people have more access, so that now we can also tap into a different mindset, tap into new ideas, which might actually spur out new innovations.
Sure. I'd like to get back to this point maybe later, but at first I'd like to hear a little bit about how your career progressed from there. But you made me think about something else. Let's touch on that a little bit later on. Accessibility, you mentioned, is like such a key point, especially in the African environment. In that context, I think it's really amazing that we are enabling so many more people with easy access to tools that they can use to make a living for themselves. I think that's a really great thing. So we'll get back to that. So how did your career progress from then?
A funny story. Once we know the old age story of a South African graduate fresh out of university, can't find work.
Yeah.
I was an example of that. So once I was finished with Rhodes, I enrolled into UNISA to do my honors.
Okay.
But then, because I was struggling to find work, I spent a year back. I moved from Grahamstown, moved back in with my parents, and then my first real job, I never really mentioned it, but the first job I ever had was working for my mom's recruitment company.
Okay, cool.
And I was helping her source candidates for her clients.
Okay.
That's the first.
Also in the tech world or not in the tech
No,
world?
not even in the tech world. Because I was at home, I was a bit idle, studying through UNISA, so not really in physical classes. My mom had started a recruitment company called, we don't even have to go into that. She started a recruitment company and she asked me to help. So I used to be on PNet searching for candidates and helping her find candidates. That's actually
probably
my
taught
first.
you a really good skill. Being able to find different team members and stuff that might help you later.
It did. I think that's where I started building some discipline in terms of work. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to work for a company called 315. They gave me a shot, my first shot. I went in for an interview. As I said, it's been now over a year. I'm about to get my degree. I'm about to graduate. Officially, haven't had a job, been at home helping mom with a company. And they took a chance on me and gave me an internship as a web developer. So honestly, that's where it started. And the thing I can't stress the most is they need to be people there to open doors. And in my career, there's been a lot of milestones that I've been able to achieve that I couldn't have achieved alone, that I couldn't have achieved without people opening doors for me.
And do you remember, you don't need to tell us the names, do you remember each of those people that opened a door for you?
Most of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them subconsciously it happened without me noticing, but in very key milestone moments in my career, I do remember most of them who opened those doors for me.
I respect. That's awesome because there's I've had the same experience. Every single jump, one can actually assign or associate to a person that either with you knowing or without you knowing open a door for you. And it's important to remember that gratitude for those who did open that.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you continue from there?
So at 315, which later turned into Bright House Digital, I was pretty much a full-stack developer, .NET and everything. But even though I've been able to do development, I've been capable of it, it's never really where I wanted to end up. I wanted to always end up as a technology professional, but more on the analyst or system analyst perspective, because during university, the system analysis part was always the part that intrigued me and that caught my attention, even though I'm very grateful for my development skills that I've gotten through the years. Then I was fortunate enough to get my first, I guess we'll say, entry-level job, since the 315 was an internship at Deloitte Digital. So I joined there and I was a front-end developer there. As I said, someone took a chance on me as well, and that was the first taste of consulting that I had. And trust me, when you go into consulting, it really shapes your work ethic. It shapes the type of professional you are, and I believe that was also part of what changed the trajectory of my career.
Would you recommend that to other young people that are coming along the ladder? I'd also like to chat on, maybe after this we can talk about that period of not finding work, but do you think it's something you would recommend to others, taking on the opportunity to work in consulting for at least a short period of time, work for any one of the big fives or even other consulting firms?
I'll definitely recommend it, but it's also a double-edged sword. I'll recommend it and not recommend it, which is the crazy part. It's just because consulting can be so intense that if you don't have the tools, and I'm talking about tools from a mental health perspective, if you don't have the tools to take care of yourself, it can get you to crash and burn. And I've also been there, which is something I don't really speak about much, but I've been to a point where my mental health deteriorated and everything. But with that said, I have come out of it a much stronger person. So I definitely do recommend consulting, because I believe if you have consulting experience in your early years as a professional, your career will actually change. You have a different view on what it means to be a professional. It's a great foundation. I'll definitely recommend it.
Did you stay there for a long time?
I stayed there for a year and a month because this is where my career transitioned again. My partner at the time who I was seeing, we were dating from first year, moved to Mauritius, and she got a job there, and I ended up following suit and moved to Mauritius. We were working at a university called African Leadership University in Mauritius, and I was part of the technology team there. So that's the significance of my time in Mauritius can't be understated, because that's where I transitioned from being a web developer into Salesforce.
Okay.
There came a time where I remember even telling my manager at the time, like, who deserves a special shout out to Setri. I remember telling him, I'm done developing. I don't want to develop. Yes, it's a great skill that I know, but it's never been my plan. I want to do something different. Whether I'm going to do something different there or elsewhere, I'm at that point, I'd like to leave. And then he's like, we have Salesforce. And I'd encountered Salesforce at Deloitte, but I never really understood what it was. At the time, there was Salesforce Classic when I first saw it. Never really looked good, really, when I saw the user interface. And then he gave me...
Very different to everything there is
today.
today.
Very different to what's now with AI, Lightning, and everything. So he actually gave me an opportunity to try out Salesforce. Like, try out Salesforce. If you don't like it, we'll look at something else. And he threw me in the deep end. There were a couple of Salesforce projects that needed to start up. And he's like, go on Trailhead, start learning as soon as you can. I want you to head up these projects. And that's really where my love, passion, joy, pain with Salesforce began. And I believe, as I said, that is another milestone that, if anything, before then, that's really the moment or the opportunity that I would say really put me where I am today.
Okay. And
that
did you take
one
that
change.
Salesforce, did you take Salesforce with you into your next...
Yeah.
Did that predict the future of your career?
It did. My next move from there, I was missing home. It had been about 2 years on the island. Me and my now ex broke up at that point. I mean, living on an island does sound great.
It sounds like the dream.
It sounds like the dream. I mean, sometimes when I told some of my family members I live in Mauritius now, they're like, do you even work?
Yeah.
And honestly, it was great. The sunset's amazing, but home is home.
Sure.
And it got to a point where I was about almost 2 years in, and I started missing home. I wanted to be closer to my family. There were certain experiences I felt will be better at home with older friends. And then that's when I decided to apply for a job at Deloitte. Having been there before and knowing that they had a Salesforce team, it only made sense to me to apply there. So I applied, went through the recruitment process as normal. But the one thing that people don't realize, in certain companies, when you boomerang, when you go back there, there's a internal reference that you need. You need your normal reference, and then they actually ask you, when you worked here, with someone that you know is still here, who can vouch for you?
Okay.
Which I found interesting. I found it's a smart one, because if you're on a boomerang, obviously...
Because it could be that you left for a reason,
Yeah.
and then that you shouldn't maybe be back,
that
so
you
a cultural fit or something.
perhaps shouldn't be back, or maybe you got let go and they didn't know.
Sure.
But fortunately, there were people there to vouch for me, which was testament to the work I did in my early career. And now I moved back home with that opportunity, which is another milestone, I believe. So the move back to Deloitte was the move that solidified me in the Salesforce ecosystem.
Okay.
Because at African Leadership University, I had just started. It had been maybe about a year with Trailhead and some projects that I'm running from a functional perspective. But the fact that someone could hire me on that little experience that I had on Salesforce proved to me that I can do it. And it was also motivation to say I can still take my career much further in this ecosystem.
Okay. And where did you go? What kind of team were you in Deloitte, and how long did that last?
I was on a Salesforce team. For a while, I actually didn't have any projects. I sat on the bench, which was opportunity as well, because that's where I became a ranger. I became a Salesforce ranger during that time. I managed to get my first 2 certificates, being the administrator and the Sales Cloud one. And then I finally had an opportunity to be on a project, which was on a FMCG client. And then, but that wasn't too long. That was probably about 5 months. That's when I started going through some mental health issues between the work pressures and my own personal life. I really started struggling with mental health, and it was getting to a point where I didn't want it to be permanent. So that's when I reached out to my parents to say, this is the situation. I need to take a break. And so I took a break, didn't work for about 3 months or so. And at the FMCG company, they actually asked me to join back as an independent contractor.
Oh, cool.
Just based on the work I had done. As I said, it wasn't a long period of time, but they were impressed with me enough. And that enters the biggest opportunity of my career. And that's when I joined AB InBev as the Salesforce lead. They trusted me enough to give me that title and that responsibility. And honestly, from there, they say the rest is history.
Okay, wow. So it's funny that your biggest, well, maybe not biggest, but a big downturn for you where you were struggling with mental health was actually just before your biggest up.
Yeah, definitely. I believe sometimes, in fact, there's a Kanye West song that says, it does not always have to be night.
It does not always have to be?
Night, because day will come.
Yeah.
That was definitely a dark period in my life, but I'm much stronger for it. It's given me the tools to navigate my career further. The reality is, being a professional in corporate, no matter where you are in the world, it does get tough.
It's intense.
The balance between your personal life and your professional life do get blurred. And that period of time really gave me the tools to be a better professional and be a better person for myself. And I don't regret it, and I'm happy it's happened because I'm much stronger than I was before, professionally and personally.
So now we're in the current time. Obviously, I know you've got a VenusOne going. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that and maybe the differences of working for big corporate and doing your own thing. Tell me about what you're focusing on right now.
Okay. I started a Salesforce partner company called VenusOne. There's no conflict of interest with my current employer because I am a contractor. And VenusOne for me was just about taking all the passion, all the experience I've had in the Salesforce ecosystem and putting it into a company that will serve small to medium businesses. Because I've been with the likes of Deloitte and I'm aware of the big consulting firms in the Salesforce ecosystem, I felt that there aren't enough companies that are represented by Black people that are supporting small to medium businesses. So that's something that I'm doing with VenusOne. I've recently changed my business model now because I also felt with everything in the ecosystem, even all the big consulting firms are still getting all the smaller clients as well. They basically taking everything up. So I've partnered with a company called Avoni, Flow Components, and what they do is they basically change and give your flows superpowers. So basically more on the side of no code again, where now you're using Flow for Flow screens to change the user experience on Salesforce without any development.
Oh, cool.
So I've partnered with them now, and
you sell their product?
I'm basically focused on getting people to use Avoni and training them on that.
Okay.
So we're partnered in that way, and I think it was an important pivot for me because I don't want to compete with the big guys. They have so much experience. They have so many resources. So I found that if I can actually find myself a niche, which is vitally important because a lot of companies, a lot of projects need developers. And in South Africa, from some banks as well, I won't mention any names, some banks, some clients, a lot of resourcing is actually done externally. We have people coming from Ukraine, from India,
whereas we have so much great talent in South Africa.
But from what I know, from my little knowledge of the Salesforce ecosystem in South Africa, we have a lot of functional professionals. So a lot of system analysts, a lot of business analysts. We do have developers, but there's still a gap in that number between what the supply that we have of developers, Salesforce developers in the market, with the demand that we have. And I believe the positioning that I'm still working on the rebrand and everything, the positioning I'm putting VenusOne in is that with VenusOne and Avoni, you don't need all the developers. Yes, you can have developers that use it as a tool to deliver value quicker.
Yeah.
You can have functional analysts that use it as a tool to deliver without any code. So that's where I'm positioning myself, because I found I've had VenusOne now for about 2 years. I've had one client in the education space. But I found that the more I thought about it, I needed to find a niche that can sit on top of what everybody's doing, a niche where I can work with the big firms instead of competing against them.
Now, looking back at your early career then, and you having started a side hustle as well as contributing to a larger organization, there was that time where you had finished studying and then you didn't have work for quite a long period of time. What's your advice to young people? Do you think you did things right back then? Is there something you could have done better? What's your advice to other young people that they have a degree, they're interested in getting into the workplace now, but they can't seem to find a job? What's your recommendation based on what you've done?
So based on my experience, I'll give a recommendation, particularly on the technology industry.
Okay.
From the things that I wish I had done differently, honestly, there aren't much. I still believe things worked out the way they needed to. But in that time period where I was struggling to find a job, I believe if I had technical certifications, it would have made a big difference for me.
Okay.
And in the Salesforce ecosystem, you don't need a degree to go on to Trailhead, start studying, and get your admin
Yeah, it's actually very easy and
certificate. Obviously, there is a cost to it, but family members can help sponsor. But I believe before people even graduate, they should invest a lot in technical certification, whether that being Salesforce, AWS, or any other big technology that's coming out. Because the reality is universities, I've been out of university now for almost 10 years, which is almost how long I've been working. But from my last experience, they don't really tackle and give us the core skills of platforms. Yes, you have the discipline. Yes, you learn things theoretically.
Yes,
but
overall understanding.
Overall understanding, which is great and important, don't get me wrong. But I believe the things I could have done differently in my university time is that wherever I could, even if it took me years, I could have focused on the current trending technologies or current relevant technologies and gotten myself technical certifications. I mean, technology trends do change over time. Technology does become outdated.
Yeah.
But as soon as employers see that motivation for you to actually dive deep into a tech stack and get technical certifications, I believe it would have made a big difference for where I would have started.
Okay. You and I were chatting as well before about current work climate and, some of us are, now that we have jobs, etc., in businesses, they're requiring us to come back into office after COVID. What are your lessons learned from there? For you personally, like you say just now, you went and got the technical skills on the specific products. You seem like a person that now is very, very driven on working no matter what, I'm pretty sure, I can't speak for you, but whether you're in a coffee shop or sitting at home or in the office, you're getting things done. How do you feel about the current climate of back to office versus allowing the opportunity for hybrid versus working completely from home? What's your stance on that? I'd just love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think the back to office thing is hitting a lot of people hard. And I'm okay with it. I do prefer a hybrid model. But what COVID showed us with working from home is that there are people who are disciplined in what they do, and there are people that aren't.
Okay.
But on the flip side, it also showed us that the employers that trust the people that they've hired, and there are those who haven't.
Okay.
Because, right now there is a big drive to get people back into offices, but I believe a lot of from real estate. I believe businesses have invested a lot into the real estate that they have. So I think a big drive is from that aspect. But when we take it from a hiring or a management perspective, if you hire the right people, no matter where they work, it shouldn't matter. Because you know you hired the right people and you trust them enough to get the work done. And I'm the type of person, I mean, now I'm in the office more often than not, because my team has to be in there, daily. So because of that, I try my best to show my face. But no matter where I work, I will always make sure I deliver the best that I can. And speaking on that, employers feel because we're back at the office, the output will be better.
Yeah, but
Being at the
that's
water,
not always the case. I mean, some businesses report, Elon Musk, for example, says, I mean, I might be paraphrasing, I'm going to have to look this up, but he said on X that if you're not coming into the office, you can find another place to work. And that obviously means, I mean, a guy like that is focused on efficiency. I'll see if I can look it up now. I personally don't believe that that's always the case. Some of our most talented people get way more done when they're at home. How do you feel about it?
I agree with that because based on the working environment, you could find some working environments that have a lot of distractions. And I believe being in technical teams, in the more tech teams, some people just want to have their head down, focus on something and be able to deliver it. Whereas if you're easily accessible in the office, you start getting a lot of demand, a lot of people want your attention.
Don't you think it also depends on your level of seniority or experience, that maybe more experienced people have the discipline and experience to work from anywhere, and maybe junior people need more guidance?
Yeah, that's a fair point, but also if that's the case, when are the junior people ever going to get there? Because I love guidance, right? Wherever I can, I help my team where they need, and we help each other. That's how it is, no matter the level. But also sometimes for me, it all comes back down to if you hired right and you hired the right people, no matter where they work, they'll deliver the output that's desired.
Sure.
Because the reality is being in the office doesn't mean you're delivering your best work. It also doesn't mean you've spent 8 hours just delivering.
Yeah.
There's water cooler chats, there's long lunch breaks, and if your company is one where it scrutinizes every single hour, every single minute of your work, I'd reconsider.
Yeah,
personally,
do you even want to be working there?
Personally, for myself, I wouldn't want to be working there. So it comes down.
Not everyone has that luxury, unfortunately.
No, that is the reality, right? And you do need to work with what you have.
Yeah.
But personally, for me, the back to work, I think hybrid is the sweet spot. Because then hybrid also does a lot for people's mental health.
Okay.
Being in the office sometimes can be very heavy. And I'm not saying it for myself. I love being in the office. I love working with my team, and I'm fortunate enough to have that great team. But at least working from home gives you that opportunity to almost switch off and just focus in, zone in, and not have to deal with office politics if there are any.
Traffic getting in, time spent not delivering. But it is twofold as well. Obviously, being at home, your bed is there as well. Sometimes it draws you in when you want to take a nap. But also, it's healthy. I think this hybrid is a healthy mix of the two. With intention, for me. That's for me. That's where I allow our teams to take a little bit of freedom. When you work in office, use it for what it's great for: collaborating with people, chatting with people, etc. When you're working from home, dive in deep and get the stuff done. I think many times it's too vague. It's you do the same thing that you would at home that you would in the office. That shouldn't be the case. You need to have intentions as to what you do at the office. With me, when I come into the office, I make sure I've time set up with each person or each team that I need to see. Sit down with me. What's up? What do you need from me? Cool. What can I do for you? Great. Next one. I can't do that at home face to face. And then at home, it's the deep work sessions. It's calm focus and focusing on specific tasks that I need to do solo. So that's where the intention, I think, comes in.
Yeah, I think from the sounds of it, it sounds like you have it on ice, and obviously
trying.
No, but from what I'm hearing, I think you should probably do a session where you're guiding other managers to do it. But I like the where you talk about intention, it's really important because with the working from home or hybrid approach, even being in the office full time, it's also about how you measure output.
Yes.
That's important. At the end of the day, no matter where people are, they need to be held accountable. And to hold people accountable, you need to put in KPIs in places. You need to put in ways of working. So if we're agile where we are, so we have a daily scrum every day where people give feedback of what they've done and what they've achieved, all the blockers and stuff. So it's very important to not just say, okay, you guys can work from home or the office, but you need to also put in the structures in place. In as much as I love working from home, without the structures, and yes, I do believe people should have the discipline to be able to work from home, but you need to still put in the structures in place to enable that as well, to also be able to track it and also see how much output is coming out of it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think anyone in my team will tell you that discipline is my favorite thing in the world. And I try to inculcate that in others, that you can track yourself. You know, you don't always want teams, although sometimes I do think it is efficient to have managers that oversee everything, oversee most of the things that teams do. But if you're the kind of person that can self-discipline, be motivated by yourself, that's a superpower. The ability to flow from one state into the other. Right now I need to be focused. Right now I need to speak to people. I'm feeling a little bit down, but I need to do a presentation. And being able to discipline yourself to move in between those states, I think is a superpower. The last question, if I may, that I have for you, we're obviously shooting this from South Africa. You're very passionate about, I read your LinkedIn posts all the time about enabling people in South Africa, empowering people in South Africa, especially in the tech space. What interesting things are you seeing in South Africa? Where are there opportunities in South Africa? What positive things do we have to look forward to in the South African context, of the South African tech space?
Yeah. A big thing for me is a lot of our technology, the big tech, like Salesforce, as we know, those who are in the Salesforce ecosystem, Salesforce has come into the country now. They've set up office and everything. Having your big corporations, your Salesforce, your SAPs, your Microsoft in the country is great. I love it for us. But we need more big companies, more big tech companies coming out of South Africa. We need more investors investing in South African businesses. We need more entrepreneurs building technology in South Africa and exporting it. And I think a great example for me of where that's happening is when we talk about the township economy. I can't speak to specific applications, but we're seeing a boom in the technology there. There's digital transformation happening on the ground where now you have apps around taxis, where now you have competitors to an Uber and Bolt being built and developed right in the townships. So I feel like we need to tap more into that. We need to tap more into applications that are very relevant to our environment, and it's very important because I'll give you an example of technology that's contextual to an environment. The money platform M-Pesa. M-Pesa got started probably here in South Africa by, I believe, it was one of the networks, either Vodacom or one of the banks. It didn't catch on as well here. Let me tell you why. Because the banking system in South Africa is one of the greatest in the world. You can even compare the banking system to America. We have probably one of the best financial institutions in the world. But M-Pesa didn't take off here, but it took off in Kenya, where the banking system might not be as mature as it is in South Africa. And the context is important because...
But it is doing well in South Africa now, isn't it?
It's picking up now, but you're finding a lot more people are banked. A lot more people have access to banks. Banks are offering more zero-rated accounts as well. But you also have companies like, I believe, Mukuru, who, they really handling finances in townships where now you can have access to financial, accounts and more at a spaza shop. That's contextual. So I believe I'm a very firm believer in us building our own contextualized technology. It's great that we have investments and we have all the big companies from around the world coming here, and we have like your Silicon Cape, and there's a lot of investment happening. But at the same time, with the continuous rise of their profits and margins, we need to look at how can we reinvest our energy in building more contextualized applications that can perhaps be also exported to the world, and
well, first solve some of the problems
locally
that we have here. And it might be, from what I'm hearing from you, well, it probably definitely is, that there's a use case for these things that we build on the ground in other countries.
Yeah.
Think of other third world countries that are growing and have a lot of economic opportunity. We can maybe take those use cases and export that, and that brings money right back to the South African economy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because also we're one of the world's most unequal countries, it's something we need to close the gap somehow. But also with that said, we also tend to believe that our environment is unique in the world. When you have a country like Brazil is very similar to South Africa. Even when some of my colleagues from Brazil are in the country, they'll actually say the climate is very similar. Certain things in the economy are very similar. So maybe one thing we can do is look at some of these countries that have it right or that don't have it right, where we can export some of our key learnings there.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, and right now we're missing out on the global aspect of things, whereby we need to start exporting our technology as well.
Yeah.
It's very important that we need to start building what we can contextually in South Africa, contribute to our local economy, but also export it, because that's how all the multinationals are making their money. That's why we have so many different multinationals in our country.
And there's
right
obviously opportunity here.
There's opportunity here, and we need to be the first ones to seize it. We shouldn't wait for people to tell us there's an opportunity in using AI in, game reserves. We shouldn't wait for someone to tell us there's an opportunity of streamlining traffic in our cities.
We should be the ones.
We should be the ones saying, these are our problems. We shouldn't be waiting for investors to say, hey, we'll help you guys with a hunger problem. We'll help you guys with this issue. We should be the ones internally with private sector and public sector working together to say, guys, these are the problems we experience in South Africa. Problems of unemployment. How do we solve that? How do we get more individuals, male and females, to be more certified in technology? How do we get everyone internet access so that they can have Trailhead to write Salesforce exams? We need to start solving our own problems. I'm not saying the world should stop helping us, but we need to take charge of it and be at the forefront of it.
And I can see you already in your future, you'll be a big contributor to those causes.
I hope so. That's the aim. That's the aim. If there's anything I believe in, is giving someone the tools and opening doors for people the same way people have opened doors for me. Because if all of us are closing our doors, what's the future looking like? It's a grim future.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks, Lethabo. There we got it coming full circle, all the way from the doors being opened to you back in the early stages of your career, and I can see you'll do that for many more in the future. So I appreciate you coming on, sharing some of your thoughts. I hope we can have another conversation like this again very soon.
Thanks for having me, Felix.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man. Peace.